All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Double B. Um, we are here with Zach Breen. He is a member of our military, and I decided that it would be best to have him to do his own introduction. So, Zach, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, world. My name is Zachary Breen. I'm a staff sergeant in the United States Army. I've currently been in for 11 years. Brad, thank you for having me on the show.
You are very welcome. Yeah, we've known each other for I don't know, almost 17 years now, close to it.
Y- Yeah, since I think
Ninth grade or
middle
something.
school, ninth grade. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Especially knowing that and then your family. Yeah, it's been quite a
hmm
while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. And
We all kind of grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same schools, and I think I picked on you a little bit. So for that, I apologize.
No, it's perfectly fine. It's
he's
it's
going to
actually
come
pretty
back and
funny.
kick your ass, is what's going to happen.
Probably because I'm fat now.
No, I'm pretty much a pacifist now. That fiery side to me is gone. You can thank your sister for that.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I can get it out of you. I'm pretty good. Nally's a pacifist, but once I get in there,
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
um,
So
so
you are stationed out of the country, which I think is phenomenal. We did have a big time zone block as far as scheduling, so it was really cool that we were able to make this happen.
Yeah, no, it's definitely crazy. This is I would say probably my third time out of the country. Definitely my second time here in South Korea, different city, but it is awesome out here. The food is amazing. The air quality is garbage, but it's better than being around burning pits and the crap that goes on in the Middle East. So, to
So
each
what you're
their own.
telling us is basically you're in Mexico with Los Angeles air quality.
I mean, that's kind of like a hit or miss, I guess. Like South Korea, it's really beautiful. You just have to get out of the cities and go see like the mountains. I once got an opportunity to go up around, I think it was summer. I got to go sit on top of a mountain for a week and just take in the views of South Korea. You could see all of Seoul and part of Incheon Island, so it was pretty cool.
That is
You
pretty
just got to
cool.
get away from the city. So it's kind of like in the United States, you just go up to the mountains and just hide up in the mountains. You'll get the good view, the fresh air. Air quality is definitely better up higher than lower.
All right, so um, I guess to start it off, what what is your I don't know
My
even how to
job, my MOS in the
no
military.
um what's your drive behind staying in the military to retire?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I would say first and foremost, it's my family. I come from a very large lineage of people in my family who have served in the military. My dad, Pat, he's my adoptive father, but he raised me as a child of one of his own, and he served in the Gulf War. His dad served in World War II as a plane mechanic. My grandfather, my mom's dad, he was in the Navy during the Vietnam era, and it kind of just goes on from there. His dad was a field artilleryman at, I think, during the World War II era, and he was stationed at uh, Fort Campbell, but back then it was Camp Campbell with my great grandmother. So, um, my main drive is basically, my family. They're my rock. They're my backbone. Without them, I'd pretty much be nothing. I'd be dead floating in the water. That's kind of harsh to say, but not only that, I do believe that I can make a difference um, in people's careers, because a lot of people these days, the old timers, are like, I just want to get out. I've served 20, 25 years, 30 years in the military, and I've got really nothing to show for it except for maybe a degree, and now I don't know what I'm going to do. My drive behind that is like, if I can inspire people to make something of themselves while they're in the military, if they choose to get out, you know, before they retire, or if they want to get out, if the military is not their thing, that they're leaving in the best shape possible with their certifications, or pointed in the right direction with schooling and stuff. So I'm just trying to give that purpose back, because when I first came in as a private E1, I had a couple platoon sergeants from my first duty assignment before we went to Iraq that just really inspired me. It's like, hey, even if this is not your thing, make sure you set yourself up for success. And the more that I stay in the military, and the more that my leaders are leaving the military, and I'm becoming that new generation, the new voice to be heard, I just want to make sure that their legacy is carried on, and that they're able to, take care of those who don't want to make it a thing, or maybe those people who aspire to be something more than just a soldier of the United States Army. We could be inspiring someone who could be like the next congressman, or maybe like the next president of the United States. The options are limitless.
But like inspiration, I mean, that's kind of why we're doing what we're doing here. Is just to help inspire people that are more or less afraid to take the next step, and to hear that people are listening, and that certain things are resonating, is just basically validated everything for at least myself.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think one of the people who really got myself kind of revved up would be my wife. My wife Deanna. She's we met at Fort Lewis back in 2012 or 2011. Sorry, I had just come back from the Middle East, and she just really inspired me to be better. We've had our ups and downs in our relationship, like who hasn't? But I don't think it was until probably like 2 years ago when she's like, "Are you ever going to go back to school? Education is important if you ever want to make something yourself." And I used to blow her off like, "Nah, no, I'll do it. And then one day she's like, "We're signing you up for college." And she's one of those people just like kick you square in the butt. If she knows you could be more, if you're worth more than you think you are, she's definitely going to get you going. And I thank her for that, because all my success that I've had to this day has stemmed from her. Because a lot of people fall in these thinking traps of, well, people feel sorry for me and eventually reach out their hand to me and kind of just like dust me off, and then I'm just going to keep falling, if I don't have that stability. But it takes a really strong woman or a really strong person to kick you square in the ass and be like, hey, no, get up, stop feeling sorry for yourself and get in action, because you control your own destiny. And if you don't take your destiny in your own hands, no one's going to do it for you. You're only going to be as great as you make yourself. And that, I think that resonates with pretty much everything. Look at NFL players. They had to start somewhere. Brad, I don't know if you remember Silver Saliga.
Yep, Silver Saliga.
Yeah, I remember him. He was in my math class. He used to be good friends through elementary school. I used to pick on him a lot because he was bigger than me. Never knew that one day he would be drafted for the NFL and play for the NFL. It was actually funny. I was asking him, when he used to play for the Patriots, what's his route to success? He's like, I just never stopped believing in myself. I always had that good support system with my family. I think that's something that really resonates with me, because like my family, I feel like I came up in a good family, but it had its really big dysfunctional moments. So that's something that I always envied, that to provide that stability and to be a better father, a better partner for my family, to provide, because who ultimately is going to inherit our legacy? It's going to be our kids, right? It's not going to be anyone else. So if you don't build that stability, it's never going to be there.
Funny enough, Silver lived like a street over from me. I don't think I ever said a word to him growing up. I was friends with his older sister a little bit here and there, but
yeah, no, and he's such a down to earth dude. Like I would talk to him on Facebook for like hours, and I think it was before they played he was on the Patriots before they played the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. He was like, "Hey man, do you want anything from Tom Brady? I can get him to sign it. And that was that time. I was like, no, screw Tom Brady. I hate the Patriots. Good luck to you, man. I hope you get your ring, but I'm still a diehard Niners fan. So, but little did I know he was on the practice squad for the Niners. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was fun to learn from him. I did a lot of track and field with him when he wasn't doing football. But so here's another question for you. What do you do if you're at liberty to talk about it, and if you had a chance to change, would you make a change?
Okay, so
in the change for.
Okay, I'm what you call the Army's fart sniffer. My official title is Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear Specialist in the military. It sounds really complex, but it's really not. We've been called everything from fart sniffers to car washers because our jobs vary from depending on our positions. Some of the positions require decontamination, which we're called car washers because we decontaminate vehicles. And then basically we just go handle all the bad stuff out there. Anything chemical related, biological related, radiological, nuclear. We leave all the high yield explosives to the EOD groups. We don't touch those at all, thank God. But if I had to make a change, it probably wouldn't be about my job. It'd probably be how I took care of my body. I don't think up until recently, until I got injured, I have a torn muscle in my back. At first, it was diagnosed as a herniated disc, but come to find out they misdiagnosed me, and it basically was for me not taking care of my body, eating like garbage, not getting enough sleep, not stretching before exercising, not cooling down properly. Had I known that, when we're at a young age, that our bodies weren't going to be, susceptible to injury, how we all think we're invincible when we're young, it finally caught up with me. So if I had to make a change, it'd probably be for me to take care of myself better in the past so I wouldn't have these issues now. Because now it's harder for me to really to stretch and to run. I used to run when I was at Fort Campbell back in 2015, a total of about 25 miles a week, roughly. And I didn't have a hard time doing it. And now I could barely run 2 miles in under 17 minutes. So that's definitely a big improvement that I would definitely recommend to anybody who's in this field, or even out there in the civilian sector. If you're dealing with a physically demanding job, take care of your body early on so you don't have these problems.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I have 2 compressed discs still, and the chiropractor's fixing me up, but it's like, if I'd have been smarter 10 years ago, holy crap, I'd be a whole lot different person. Not having to wake up, feel like I got beat up by the pillow.
I think it's impressive that you can still do 2 miles in 17 minutes. It'd probably take me 17 hours to get that far.
It's funny, like coming off this injury, and today I took my PT test, like running 2 miles was definitely a lot harder than I remember, because I used to smoke it in like anywhere between 13 and 15 minutes, and today it took me 17. I'm just like, I don't ever remember running this slow. And then I realized, oh, that's right, you are human, you have a back injury, but you're doing good things still, so just keep rehabilitating yourself. And it took a lot out of me. Like, I was throwing up this morning, I was spitting, almost crapped my pants, but wasn't a pretty sight. I get pretty ugly when I run, but I mean, I am pretty ugly now still too, but hey.
I think the fastest I've ever ran was from a black bear, and I did like a mile and felt like 2 seconds.
Yeah, fight or flight will do that to you.
Uh-huh.
So you mentioned that you're going to stay in until retirement. And I think a lot of problems stem from being active military and adjusting into civilian life again. So, what is your plan for the future after you're done? And
Oh.
how do you intend to get there?
Well, to be honest with you, I really haven't put too many plans into place. I know that's kind of weird coming from a soldier, right? Been doing this for 11 years. But the one thing I have learned about in the military is to network. And I've been doing a lot of networking with the places I've been. For instance, my last duty assignment was in Colorado Springs. And my job allowed me to work side and hand in hand with the Pueblo Chemical Depot down there. They're currently right now demilitarizing all the mustard rounds from the World War II that were stockpiled, but also too were able to work with them and the FBI. I was able to actually talk to one of the head directors of the FBI for the chemical forensics team, and he was like, we need people like you who know a lot about their job on the force. He's like, are you ever plan on getting out? I said, yes, but by the time I'd be able to get out, I'm going to be 39. You're probably not going to recruit me, but that's not meaning to say that that's never going to happen, because they also have desk jobs there too. But what I have put into place is that I'm currently going to college. I am going to Pikes Peak Community College right now for criminal justice. I really, within my job, in the forensics world, basically, with my experience, that kind of resonates with me. So I'm trying to step up my education to put that in place to where I can get those certifications and network at the same time before I get out, to be able to cross over into the civilian sector to maybe like a GS government job, teaching my job, or advanced classes about my job, or trying to get back into the police force to do my forensics. That's what I would really like to do, and I think that's going to be a good plan coming forward, especially coming out of the military with security clearance. And that's one of the perks about the military too, is that you're not paying for that security clearance. It's coming off the taxpayers' dollars. So
not only that, the police force here, well, in Salt Lake anyway, has a 25-year retirement. So if you were able to jump from one to the other, you'd be completely done by 64 and pull double retirement.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. Is just with the economy these days, with how expensive the cost of living is, that's kind of hard to decide where I'm going to end up. I think a lot with everybody else, because most households, you have to have a total of, I think, like 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And the military doesn't really, it does, but it doesn't give you that support. I guess it all depends on, your bills and how well you take care of your money and invest.
So what would you say if you were trying to explain the rigors of having to come back from the military and go into the civilian life? How would you explain it for those that don't understand, or maybe bring forth an idea that nobody really talks about?
Well, I think there are a few factors out there that I think that people don't understand. One, the military is like one big brother and sisterhood. You have that camaraderie, you have that structure that I see a lot of people don't have. I think one of the things that the hardest part about reintegrating back into civilian life is unprogramming those years, those emotions, those thought processes coming out of the military that the military has constantly beaten into, like mission first, family second, go, 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 go. And now you're able to step back and you'll be like, I just spent 20, 25 years of my life in this lifestyle, and now I'm having to drastically change it to try and reintegrate society. Look at some vets these days. A lot of their problems stem from the war. They come back from war. The military really hasn't, taken care of them, or they haven't, gone out to get help, because that's a big stigma in the military these days, is that if you're suffering from PTSD, depression, anxiety, it's weak of you to go get help, even though that they preach it, that it's okay to get help. But the moment you get help, people start, your evaluations go down every year. Your boss, your soldiers, you lose confidence because you're the one who has the problems, not them. And I think that's something that the civilian side doesn't really do a good job with, especially with the VA, just helping these veterans trying to reintegrate back into society. Because to be honest with you, when we leave the military, we had to go through a 2-week program that basically was like, here's how to get a job. Good luck. And that's it. So it doesn't teach you, what emotions you're going to be experiencing. What are some things to keep your head up? Because, a lot of people, they leave the military thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go get a job at USPS or UPS, or I'm going to go get a job at Lockheed Martin because I have the certifications, and they interview, or they don't even get an interview. And they're like, okay, now what? My parents are dead, or I might not have anywhere to go. Now I'm a homeless veteran. I don't know what to do with myself. And that's where you get a lot of those people too, who develop um, those diseases, whether it be severe depression, where they just, one day they're fine and then the next day they're dead. So I think for others, what they need to understand is that it'd be appreciative if there were more understanding, I guess, when veterans come out of the service, because we have spent so much time in training and a set way of life. It's going to be hard for us to let go of that when our time is up. And to go back to, I'm now Mr. Breen. I could actually use my first name. I'm Mr. Zach. I spent X amount of time in the military. Oh, that's cool. Do you know anything about this? Well, no, but I know my job's like, okay, well, we don't need you.
I just thought of something as you were saying all of that. Is I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we go into high school and they say, oh, you got to go to college or go to the military or whatever, your life is going to be bullshit, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like high school. Like, you weren't prepared for the future. And I think for a lot of people, their 20s is kind of like a weird transition period.
Oh,
Where you
definitely.
learn to be an adult. But civilians go through that in their 20s, right? Military members don't, unless they go reserves. So if you're in until retirement, I think it would be a little bit more difficult, because you're honestly doing it later in life, but you're kind of going through the same experience.
Well, to be honest with you, I would say all of my 20s was horrible. Um, and here's why. I made my life a living hell. I didn't really have self-confidence. I didn't have a self-image. Um, I would party a lot. I would drink excessively to the point where I become violent or black out. Um, and a lot of that came from, my demons inside me, which I've actually, up until recently have been dealing with. And then thank God for a beautiful thing called EMDR, which is cognitive reprocessing, has helped me tremendously. But like soldiers who join, like me, who are about 19 years old, getting ready to turn different page in life, they do get to experience their 20s. It's just not on their terms. You're still allowed to live a life outside of the military, but it's not the same experiences, I guess, you would as if you were going up to full-time college, freaking working at a Pizza Hut down the street and going to the University of Utah or whatnot, and going to school. Whereas in the military, you're constantly training, you're constantly, getting ready to go somewhere, and you have some knowledge of what's going on, but you don't really know exactly what's going to happen down the line. So I guess in some ways they do get that time, but not to the same extent as a normal 20-year-old would be. And that's something that I had to you know, learn about myself is that I didn't get to experience a lot of things when I was 20, but then like trying to do it later on in my mid 20s, it just like my wife had to bring me down to earth a bit. It's like, hey, I got it. You want to party, you want to drink, you want to go and do your own thing, but remember this: you chose to have a family, you chose to be in the military, you chose a different path than all those other people. So before you get in your head that you can always be gone and go and do these things, remember you have us back here that you need to focus on. So, you know, that's pretty much all I got to say about that.
I honestly think that a lot of people miss that point too, where, yeah, they have a family, but they're going to go do this. Or they don't have a family, but they're trying to build something, and then they put their priorities in something else. And their vision of what they wanted to do is lessened, I guess, is what I'd say. Um, and it's nice to hear you say it because, I mean, nobody talks about it. And um, I think it's something that is also another stigma that, okay, yeah, in your 20s, do whatever you want to do instead of figure out who you are and then figure out where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those problems stem with distractions, because you have a lot of these soldiers these days who may have had a rough childhood, and they're just barely figuring themselves out, and all they need is that person to believe in them. But then when that person isn't really fully there themselves and they're trying to motivate that person, it turns into the wrong reasons, and then that same person just ends up getting brought down by their mentor. Think of it as in Star Wars, Anakin Skywalker, who was afraid of his visions coming true, of losing everyone that he loved, and being able to be molded by the Emperor, not knowing that he was a Sith Lord, but eventually giving into that fear and being able to be molded into something evil. I mean, granted, he had redemption, but you see a lot of that with these soldiers these days, with leaders who just don't have it together, but yet we're supposed to be in that position to provide leadership and mentorship for these young soldiers and mold them in our own image to make them better than what they think they are. So if the drive's there but your mind's not, it's not going to turn out well. And I think that's what leads a lot of people to have these aspirations, like, yeah, I'm going to go get my degree, I'm going to go do this, and then they get distracted by something, or you have somebody who's like, well, you don't need a degree here in the military, you're good, you're eventually going to rank up, you'll be fine. But what they're not telling the person is like, but what about later on when the suit comes off? What if you get hurt to the point where they have to med board you out and you're thrust back into the civilian sector? No one tells them these things. They just kind of live in the moment rather than look to the future.
I think so. I've got words. Let me try this all over again. We've got a really good circle of people, Brad and myself do, of people who are in the reserves, or they're veterans, or people that are active but about to come out. And I think it would be really good to connect yourself with these individuals, because a lot of these guys are like there's a couple circles for like veteran business owners and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I just had this thought: it would be awesome if we could get you guys all connected, and then maybe they could provide you guys insight as to what to expect in the future, like what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that. Oh, sure. That could be like a new mentorship program that maybe like Rob or somebody could work out if there's not something like that already.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think that'd be great, because I think, even the reserves, the National Guardsmen, they may not be on the same page as us, but they have their own like issues and stuff. But if, we're able to get together, I mean, that's what the military is about. It's just one big family taking care of each other, and, you make a lot of good friends. You make a lot of, brothers and sisters, and some of them will stick with you for the rest of your life. I think there's only 2 people out of the hundreds of thousands of people that I met in the military that I consider to be my family. But I've always been like that. Luckily for me, you guys took me in as one of your own, so it's nice to to be able to see and check in on the family. And that's always a great surprise. Even though I suck at communication, but it's always good.
I mean, it doesn't hurt that you're 15 hours ahead of us. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a trip. Living in the future.
So, so what's going to happen to us tomorrow? I'm just kidding.
Hold on, give me 1 second. All right, I'm sorry. I got an appointment here in about 20 minutes. I probably have time for a couple more questions.
Okay. That's about as much time as we got to. So I have a friend, and I'll keep him nameless because he's asked me to.
Okay.
And he was suffering with PTSD and with a lot of issues because he was in the Army and then went to the Army Reserve, went to the Middle East a couple of times. And I was kind of a dick to him because he wouldn't go and get help. I was a dick in a loving way, I guess is how I would say it. But I mean, eventually he sought help and he's doing a whole lot better now. What would you say to us civilians, air quotes, because I know you don't like saying that because it feels derogatory, but what would you say to us if we have a chance to help out a veteran or know of a veteran you can help of? What would you say to do if we could put that foot forward?
Just like it just go with an open mind. And I think that's what helps, because I've had a lot of therapists in the past who have been like one track minded, who've been like, oh, you have PTSD or you have depression, get over it. And that's what turns us away from a lot of people. Lately I've had a great therapist who's been like open minded to be like, if you don't, let's try and get you healthy, get your mind right, but we're not going to force you to do something that you don't want to do yet. Don't be forceful. For veterans, sometimes we could be in a really fragile state depending on the severity of our problems. I know for me, my depression and anxiety stemmed from a lot of just like everything in my life that I've been sitting on, from my ex-wife and my kids to my current relationship with my spouse to work, just harboring everything. So slow, gradual progress, I think. Keep in touch with them, just making sure that they're in a good place. But I think eventually the more you show your support, the better and more open that they'll be with you to go get help. Remember, it's like that old saying, you can bring the horse to water but you can't make it drink. That's the exact same thing with veterans. You just got to be open-minded and just give them the opportunity. And I think once they build that trust and that foundation, eventually they'll realize that they need to go get help. Sometimes it takes, it could take years. It could take one single moment to where, they're in jail, hopefully not hurting anybody, but eventually they'll snap out of it and wake up and be like, oh, I need to go get help. And for me, it took a lot, because I went to go get help. I had CPS calling me because I had freakouts at night, and my daughter wasn't sleeping in her own bed because we couldn't afford to buy another bed for my daughter. That really turned me off from getting help. So instead of doing that, I just coped with a lot of alcohol. It became violent. My wife and I were on the cusp of divorce because I didn't want to get help. I didn't want to stop drinking. I didn't want to basically do anything that was going to help me get better because I didn't think anything was going to work. And I think, hearing some stories and, taking that leap of faith with this thing called EMDR, with my counselor, it really closed a lot of those doors that I left open throughout the years, and really, you know, helped me get better. And I love my life now. I went from, man, I'm tired of this. I just want to end it. I don't want to be a part of life anymore, to, you know what, there's so much more to life to live for now.
And I love that story so much. And part of it's just because of our episode that came out today, and the topic behind that one. But um, I think it's admirable that you are able to share that now, because that's a huge step in the direction forward.
Yeah, and you know, just like everything else, it's a continual process, and you know, I don't think one person can be like, okay, I'm done, I'm perfectly fine now. I think just it might not have to be more frequent. It could be less frequent, but just checking in with someone and be like, hey, I'm good. You know, and they'll be like, hey, let's check up with your mental state and see how you're doing. And I think that's all that really matters now, is like, as long as I'm checking in with people, or people, you know, people I haven't talked to in years, be like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, oh, that's weird. It's good to talk to you though, you know? So I think that helps, just to have that support from people, you know, people who really might not be there all the time, but constantly checking on you just to make sure, you know, you're doing okay. I think that's what means the world to a lot of people, not only just to me.
You know,
Well,
it's funny.
go ahead, Kevin.
All right. I do this thing where I'll monitor my social media circle, I guess, my friends. And if somebody gets like, and they're posting a lot, and then all of a sudden they get quiet, even though like we don't talk a whole lot. And a lot of people could attest to this if they had to actually, but I'll reach out to them just randomly and say, you know, I haven't heard much from you lately. Hope you're doing good. Thinking about you. If you need anything, let me know. And every time I've done that, has gotten an incredible response.
Right. And I think that's good too. And one thing that I would say that I hate the most is social media has taken over a lot of people's lives. And I think that's the one thing that people don't realize, is that social media is turning into this crazy ordeal. It's taken away from physical contact. It's like the invention of the cell phone, you know. People like, oh, it's gonna do nothing good but you know, and take away from that what is it? Take away from that human interaction, you know, and that's what it is. And a lot of people these days are relying on social media to, just like who is it? Justin Bieber, when he was coming up. You remember that, Brad?
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a check in to make sure that people know who you are. You know, it's like you have to personally check in with someone to know like what your status is these days. That you can't just be a normal person. It's like you're just doing it for status. Like, who cares about what your status is?
Well,
You
and
know, are you
that's one thing that we've actually, me and Kevin at least, we've seen is a lot of people on social media now are having to inflate who they are instead of actually being who they are.
right? And I think that that's retarded, because ultimately, like, who's gonna care about how many friends you have on Facebook? Like, I try to keep my circle tight to people that I care about generally, those who I connect with. But I also think that, you know, social media is ultimately going to be the fall of humanity, because it's taking away from that person. You know, you can't, through social media, you can lie about who you are to everybody, but only the people who know you know who you truly are. So with that being said, you know, it's just like these people in the military, they're getting in trouble because they're posting stuff on social media, them acting a fool, but yet they're supposed to be like this hero in the civilians' eyes when they're just acting retarded.
Right.
No one is going to know you except for you. And if you can't look yourself in the mirror and be happy with who you are, and you need somebody to verify your status, then you got a lot more problems than just that. I'm not arrogant. I'm not cocky. I would think I'm pretty humble. And I don't need anyone to verify my status because I know who I am as a person. My wife and my kids, my daughters, my family. I don't think would resonate with me if I was always constantly looking for that affirmation. That status check.
I agree. So I have one last question. I know that you're really busy.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
We ask this question to everybody, and we like it because it's so dynamic. But what is your personal definition of success?
Success. My personal definition of success is: are you happy with where you're at in life? It's not based off of how much money I make, how many nice things I have in my house. It's not what fancy cars I drive, where I get to travel in the military. It's quality. It's the quality of life that I'm living. You could have so much money, you could have the biggest house, you could have the nicest cars, and yet still feel depressed because you don't have everything. What makes me a success, and my definition of success, is the quality of life that you live. I think I'm the rich. I might not bring in a lot of money, but with my girls and my wife and even my 2 boys that live with my current ex-wife there in Salt Lake, I feel very blessed and I feel very successful because of who I am as a person, what I do for the nation, and what image I paint for my family. That to me is success rather than the quantity of what I have.
I
I love it.
So that to me, that hits home to me, and I think a lot of that has to do with just life itself. I noticed, when I was younger, I would spend money on things like cars and electronics, but like I always felt empty. Like even with my ex-wife, like I felt empty. Like I had all the cool things that everyone else had, but I didn't really feel fulfilled or successful. Even my dad, he that's where it kind of stems from too, because I remember some of the best vacations that my family ever took wasn't to Disneyland. It wasn't across the nation. It wasn't, this big expensive thing. It was to go see my grandmother in Reno, Nevada, just to see family. It didn't have to be something huge. It's the quality of time, the quality of time that you get with those people that you care about the most, and the message that you send to them is what I think success is. And just to cap this off, I once had a leader that said, you can have so many other people around you, but in order to be successful, you must surround yourself with people who have been successful.
completely agree.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. All right, my man. Well,
Not just me.
that's one of the best answers we've heard. It's probably top 5 that we've heard.
I'm not trying to impress anybody. That's just who I am.
Well, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone who is that person. We're not looking for somebody to inflate themselves.
True that.
Well, cool. Do you have anything else for him, Brett?
I don't think so. Other than we'd love to reconnect again in a little bit. If you want to do it again, do another one, go a little further deeper into some things, or
Yeah, no, I would definitely love to. I think what I'm going to end up having to do next time, though, is definitely catching you guys on a weekend where I don't really have to plan anything. Last time, I apologize because something came up at work, something that I really can't talk about that we deal with out here in South Korea. Just one of those Koreaism things, and when
We
the North decides
Yeah,
to act a little froggy.
we have to
we
reschedule all the time. So
yeah, we don't mind
totally get
reschedules.
it.
Yeah, let's reconnect and then go ahead. We're connected on Facebook and we can talk. You have my number. We can set up a weekend.